Camera 41 right now in the Tupelo area. First 12, we're 36 at 7, 29 by 10. So if you are fortunate enough to see those northern lights tonight, it will be chilly for whatever you're trying to do outside while you're trying to look ahead toward that. 25, 1 o'clock in the morning, 22 by 4 a.m. And yeah, down to 20 to begin the day for tomorrow and a wind chill in the teens. It is not a warm beginning to your Tuesday morning there. As we look at Mississippi Live, Mama Justice Doppler radar, again, some high, thin clouds. That's really the only story that we have out there outside of any sort of precipitation. That's that snowfall up there to the north of us. High pressure, this coming all the way from Canada. And again, there's plenty of cold air where this one came from, back up there to the Great White North. And that will continue spilling in. And that's one of the things that increases our odds of the wintry precipitation by this weekend is the fact we just have so much cold air in place by the time it arrives. The actual storm system that brings us to more active weather way, way out there in the Pacific Ocean. It'll dive southward, and it's not our typical snow setup. And that always makes me, frankly, 100% honest, as a meteorologist, nervous when we start talking about a snow setup that's not the typical one, because that means it has a high likelihood of being wrong. But confidence is higher than usual at this time frame out because of that cold air and because a lot of our projections really grabbing a hold of this in some kind of form and fashion of wintry precipitation. But as you can see, nothing like that for tonight. We're looking this weekend by the time we're looking toward that. So we still have a whole week to go through. Monday evening, again, here we are dry and clear, only high and thin clouds kind of moving through our skies at this point, kind of coming in from the west. That is just enough to possibly impede a little bit of the viewing there of our aurora. We'll talk to Gabe about that coming up right after the commercial break, but we're keeping it dry and clear, as you can see here, throughout tonight. And cold for tomorrow morning. Your first 24 here over the next 24, 21 at 6 a.m. We're 30 degrees by 9 a.m., 40 by noon, and mid-40s on the way by 3 p.m. That's it. We typically should be lower to mid-50s, so below our normal, below our average this time of year, but we keep it completely clear and dry, just kind of setting the stage again with the cold conditions that we do have in place. Now, in 60 seconds, got a lot to go over. We're talking about how the solar wind is affecting the aurora and how it's kind of taking place. Aurora, another term for the northern lights, technically more technical term for that. And the potential that we could be dealing with one of those this evening. Obviously, in the near term, something of great interest, I know to myself and many others. And then the snow potential, that's going to revolve around confidence. We will look at the confidence with an exclusive look, something you would see here only on Mississippi Live. Rain, snow, and ice finders, where we get the overlap there, how that could relay threats for you as you start planning for later this weekend. The weekend coming up here in 60 seconds as Mississippi Live weather continues from the Room to Room Weather Center right after this.
Out with the old and in with the new. It's time to save big at Room to Room's New Year's sale. Store-wide markdowns 50 to 70% off. No tax. 48-month special financing. It's a new year at Room to Room Furniture in Tupelo. There's no place like home.
As we move into storm season, here's something most homeowners don't realize after a storm. Roof damage isn't always obvious. Wind can lift shingles, breaking the seal. Hail can bruise them below, and flashing around chimneys and pipes can loosen without you ever knowing. That damage may not show up for months. If your area has strong wind or hail, a professional inspection will help bring you clarity before small damage turns into bigger problems.
I felt accomplished after I got my diploma. Made me feel that I could take on whatever challenges life throws at you.
Find free adult education classes near you at finishyourdiploma.org.
This portion of Mississippi Live weather is presented by Little's Jewelers.
Right now, from the Room to Room Weather Center, here's Mississippi's Chief Meteorologist, Matt Lovehon.
Well, a few stars showing up outside of our camera in Alcorn County on the south side of the county. I'm Chief Meteorologist Matt Lovehon. Thank you so much for watching us, liking, subscribing to us here on Mississippi Live Weather. Again, there's the clouds toward the horizon. They're going to kind of shroud our ability to see some of the horizon tonight, hoping to possibly see the northern lights with that. I'm going to show you the cloud cover perspective on that here in a moment. Mama Justice Doppler radar, though, at this instant, showing no precipitation out there, so nothing of significance related to that. But as we kind of look at the forecast for tonight on Futurecast here, you'll notice that continues to keep it, again, dry and unfortunately, Oh, hold on. Went right past it there. Let's come right back to that again. Some clouds out there, despite the fact we don't have any precipitation. So 10 o'clock, 11 o'clock for tonight, even though this big H says high pressure sinking air with that, these high thin clouds, they're just thick enough to possibly impede a little bit of our viewing. The other men of our broadcast team this evening, our meteorologist Gabe Maynor back in the studio here. And so that's what, if we get enough, they have some clouds on that. Gabe, what are we looking at there?
Well, they're a little bit more north than us here in Mississippi, so they have a higher likelihood of getting some of those geomagnetic storms, but this is a look in Iceland tonight, and this is incredible. All the colors, love seeing those views, and big thank you to the North Mississippi Storm Chasers for sharing that with us and showing that off, but yeah, definitely wish it was like that down here. Don't know if it'll ever reach that potential, not just because of the limiting factor with cloud cover. We're also talking about some of the data just not exactly lining up. Our Adrian with the North Mississippi Storm Chasers letting us know that after some quick data assessments, they were talking about the bulk of the coronal mass ejection has come and gone. So that peak that we saw earlier this afternoon, it was when it was sunny, so we weren't able to get any visual on that. And as we head into this evening, we'll probably need another mass ejection in order for us to get any viewing down here in the southern part of the United States or North Mississippi. So nonetheless, it's not looking good. Cloud cover might limit that as well. So Matt, it's not exactly a favorable setup heading into this evening, and we're fingers crossed still, but not exactly looking optimistic at our aurora forecast this evening. And of course, if you are...
Oh, sorry. Go ahead, Gabe. I'll bring you back on there real quick for a second. Go for it, Gabe.
My fault. I was just going to say that, of course, the further north you go, the better your likelihood of seeing this. So, if you want to travel up to the Canadian country line, then, hey, maybe you get a visual up there. But it seems like it's a little bit of a haul for just a good-looking view. But I don't know. Maybe it's worth it in some cases.
Well, hopefully that's the case. And again, the atmosphere, this way the solar wind works, it's still strong at this point here, so we're still hopeful that could be eventually leading here to slightly better chances to possibly see one later on tonight. But again, more questions than answers on that one there. Our meteorologist Gabe Maynor reporting. Thank you so much for that, Gabe. And again, as you look at your school bus forecast for tomorrow morning, while we're going to talk a lot more about, in just right after this forecast here in a moment, about the snowfall, ice, and everything that we do and don't know here in a second. The expectation is that we're probably going to continue to obviously send kids to school all week long. It's just later this week that perhaps things could get a little bit more active. So temperature-wise, here's what we're looking at over the next 7 days, and you can clearly see one of the factors. We're not on the warmer end. We never actually get up to our normal for this time of year. We're hovering a little below it most of the week. Friday, our day of transition with cold air, really cold air spilling in. We only make it to 30 for Saturday. That means between sometime late Friday and Sunday, we don't come above the freezing point. And that means that if we have precipitation at that time, it's something other than rain that falls, or maybe it's rain that freezes. Ultimately, this is one check mark strongly indicating something other than just rain falls out of this system. I hate talking about winter weather 4 and 5 days out, but our confidence that we get something is pretty decent because of this, the amount of cold air we should have in place. Now, something you're going to see only here on Mississippi Live. This is Snow Finder. And if you've watched us before, you saw us talk about this last week, I have tweaked things to hopefully make it a little bit more understandable. You're going to want to pay very close attention to this scale here. This is your likelihood. Now, you'll notice how there's some spots up there where we show snowfall with no likelihood at that point there. That's very low potential for some of those spots. So what we're layering here is how much we could accumulate and then the likelihood of that occurring, right, at any given time period. So case in point, look for locations back out here on the plains. You see where we're out here, we're into the oranges and even kind of that reddish sort of color there. That's a very high likelihood for locations out there that they're going to see snowfall. So take that as the point. We're going to watch the colors getting in here on the lines. The lines are important as to what we end up seeing, but that's just to kind of calibrate things. On Storm Finder, when you see the reddish color here, that's high likelihood there. layered on top of the potential accumulations we see, okay? So let's bring this back in here. Let's come in close to North Mississippi. We're going to do this for not just snow, we're going to do this for ice, and then how rain figures into all this as well. So on our snow finder, as you can see here, snowfall potential begins, potentially some light accumulations in the late day time period on Friday and into early Saturday. Now notice on our scale, when you're looking at accumulations, it's not particularly high. Neither is it high when we're looking at the colors here, right? Yellow would be 30% possibility, likelihood. So again, confidence is still relatively low, but this will increase. If this were tomorrow, we'd be a much higher likelihood here. But because we're looking all the way to Saturday and this is Monday, that's why confidence on SnowFinder is lower than it would be as we get closer here. So big takeaway number one is that the confidence is much, much higher for locations up into Tennessee. But even then, we're still looking 4 to 5 days out here, right? Saturday, 6 p.m. be 5 days away. So your confidence is not going to be particularly high. But the takeaway should be that projections have the potential for at least some accumulation throughout much of our region. Certainly higher accumulation amounts are more likely, with certainly relative peaks out here on the system and back out there toward Virginia, where very significant snowfall potential is there. But the big way should be, number one, the confidence on the likelihood is still increasing, but not high, at least not at this point. While we're talking about this, let's pop up the chat. I'm sure people will have opinions, and we'll talk about those here in just a second. Can't hear me very well. Hold on. That's good. I see only that one person was mentioned they can't hear me very well. If we have issues hearing me, y'all let me know, all right? And we'll talk about that. Okay, so this is SnowFinder, and that's how. Same sort of thought is the way in which our Ice Finder works. So give me a moment as we'll kind of bring in Ice Finder. So this is Ice Finder. Again, something we've never shown before. Now we're debuting here on Mississippi Live. 5:30 a.m. Friday, none. But then that potential starts to increase. And you don't see any accumulation at this point, but you can see again, this is confidence you see up there at the top. In the green, that'd be 10% confidence. That is not high. Okay, as we progress into Friday night and early Saturday morning, that's when the potential for ice accumulations increase. And again, the numbers here on our scale were way too early to really nail any of these down, okay? So confidence is increasing in the potential that we could have some ice as well. But as you saw there, just for a brief moment, this is our 10% confidence layer right there, the green. We never get super confident on ice on this for our area, not at this point. Now, if this were the day before or the day of, that confidence would be much higher, but this still remains a low confidence situation because of this here. But as you can see, Ice Finder indicating some version of ice, whether it is kind of a snow-sleet mix or freezing rain, that potential is there that we could have some accumulating ice. But confidence remains, and this is the important thing right here. Confidence remains low at this point because we're still so far out. So we expect this to change substantially over the next few days. And I'll dig a lot more into the why behind that coming up here in a couple of minutes. Now let's look at Rainfinder here for a second. And Rainfinder is going to show us again where we have obviously the likelihood of rain. And one thing you'll immediately take away on this is that those likelihoods are massively higher, right? Wednesday, back there into Texas, yeah, I mean, you're basically 100% confidence in rainfall, right? 90s to 100% confidence. And as you look here in the Wednesday, again, that initial wave, rain, right? High confidence level, the heaviest of that will be down to our south, okay? So that's kind of the initial wave here. Then, as we go into Friday and progress into Friday, if we ever see precipitation during the day Friday, confidence is still kind of equal to a certain extent on the snowfall and rainfall for most of our areas. Certainly farther south here, while we showed a little bit of blue on that map a moment ago, much more likely to see rainfall for locations down that direction. But you will notice as we progress into Saturday that confidence in rainfall even shrinks farther south. And that leaves most of us in that zone where we have, I think, the potential for wintry mix. So here's how we kind of interpret all this. This is not a setup where we think we're going to hinge more toward rain. This is a setup where we expect that we're going to have something wintry. And that something wintry will be either snow, or if we have even a little bit of warm air aloft, which is a very good likelihood, it melts into something else for many spots. There could be a freezing rain, it could be a little bit of sleet, and it could be some snowflakes. It could be a mix of all of that. So takeaway being, obviously, this is a long ways out. This will evolve substantially between now and then. Join the conversation. As you can see on there, a lot of folks, snow, no snow, all of the above, and everybody wanting to know, how do you prepare ahead? Listen, we will continue to have updates here as we go throughout the week. And I certainly recommend that you keep tuning in for those updates, because clearly things will change substantially over this week as we kind of narrow things down. But we do expect the positioning on all this to adjust. So again, this rain finder, snow finder, ice finder all come back to confidence, and confidence will increase as we get closer to the event. Confidence very good, though, again tonight, that we are going to be cold, really cold, with low temperatures tomorrow morning down into the 20s and teens, and wind chill temperatures, again, low 20s, and in some cases teens as well. Luckily, there's not a strong wind, but enough to obviously keep it fairly cool. Into tonight again and tomorrow, mostly dry conditions as high pressure kind of settles away from us. And we'll dig a few more things related to this snow threat coming up after the commercial break. We're going to look at the jet stream, a few things, why this is such a weird setup from usual. But high pressure shows us we're still dry on your Tuesday and clear across the region. High temperatures expected to be mid-40s in Tupelo, 44 degrees New Albany, 42 Boonville, as well as 42 in Red Bay. We're 50 in Grenada, 51 for Greenwood, and 48 Cleveland, 47 in the Clarksdale area. You can see those winds out of the south. That's bringing in slightly more moisture, and that'll kind of prep things for some rain chances that could arrive as we head toward midweek. You kind of saw it a moment ago there with the rain and thunderstorm chances getting a little closer to us here. But into the pre-dawn hours of early Wednesday morning, still mainly dry, and likely to, I think, start largely dry to begin the first part of Wednesday. But showers do start picking up 5, 6 o'clock in the morning. You want to check out our meteorologist, Maggie McCauley. She'll have updates starting at 6:30 a.m. Wednesday morning, and then 6:30, 7:30 a.m. here on Mississippi Live Weather Today. The latest updates on that, of course, keep it here, and make sure you have that app. I still have that app information there on the foreground, so I'll go ahead and pop that off here for a moment so we kind of clear that off of the screen. But as we rejoin the conversation there, the shower chances obviously increasing through the day Wednesday. So 20s out there again to begin the day, slightly more mild, okay, about 10 degrees milder than we will be for tomorrow morning. For early Wednesday morning there, 33 are normal, really about 4 degrees below that with wind chills in the neighborhood of, again, the upper to mid-20s for early Wednesday. And then those showers increasing as we watch our next front approach us. Again, mainly light to moderate rainfall at most here. We're 9, 10, 11 o'clock there Wednesday morning. More moderate rainfall back out into Arkansas. And again, the showers kind of spreading in. You saw a little change there. That's where we changed between the HRRR model, which is a little bit more conservative on the rainfall, to our strike model, which has a bit more in the way of showers and the potential maybe to have a few rumbles that mix in as well. But no severe weather with what we're looking at on Wednesday, and high temperatures Wednesday, 46 Boonville and Corinth, 52 for Greenwood there, 55 for Kosciuszko, Louisville, and Macon there. And as we check out that 7-day forecast, again, probably 50s there for your Thursday for highs. Again, thunderstorms possible late Wednesday night, early Thursday, but really more rumbles, and honestly, they're heavier showers more than even that. So 51 for your Thursday, 46 degrees as we go toward Friday, and obviously those rain chances changing over into snow and potentially some ice that is a mix of sleet and freezing rain. It's all still on the table, and we're still 5 days out. I cannot emphasize that enough. We are 5 days out. And I'm telling you right this. At the TV station, I'd have been pretending this didn't exist right now, because that's how I kind of handled it. But when you have a near infinite amount of time, we appreciate your patience with it, but in your infinite amount of time to talk about it, we'll talk about it 6, 7 days out, whereas we wouldn't at the TV station. So figuring out how the best way to do that, something that we are still doing. But one way I'm going to look at that is using the jet stream. And I want to show you why this pattern is so weird and why that is tricky for how this all plays out. That, plus our meteorologist Gabe Maynor in 60 seconds as Mississippi Live Weather continues here from the Room to Room Weather Center right after this.
By the time you see the symptoms of lung cancer, it could could be too late. Now there's a new scan that can detect lung cancer early. If you smoked, get scanned.
Hate is loud, but love is the majority.
Hi, I'm Ryan Blaney, a third-generation race car driver, and we dedicate a lot of our time to going as fast as possible. But when my grandpa was diagnosed with Alzheimer's, it was a very unexpected bump in the road for us. It's important to notice if older family members are acting differently, experiencing problems with their memory, or having trouble with routine tasks. Early detection of Alzheimer's can give your family time to explore support services, make a plan for the future, and access available treatments. If you or your family are noticing changes, it could be Alzheimer's. Talk about seeing a doctor together.
Okay, current time is 6:23. You're watching Mississippi Live Weather here. I'm Chief Meteorologist Matt Lawpon alongside of meteorologist Gabe Maynor. Cloudy, but no precipitation and cold out there in Winona as we await the possibility of maybe getting lucky enough to see some lower northern lights this evening. According to Josh, one of the folks with their Northern Mississippi Storm Chasers, they're looking at this a little bit of a dip in what they're looking for. 3 o'clock this afternoon. Hopefully it wasn't 3 hours too soon on that, but we will see now that we're finally getting here to dark. Let's look at our jet stream. And the reason this is important is this is kind of one of the key factors on how we end up watching things progress over the course of this week. So the jet stream is a river of fast-moving air in the upper levels of the atmosphere. And I want to point out our next system, which is way out here in the Pacific, and how this plays into our overall forecast. So again, watching big dips out there in the Pacific, this is a big storm system right there. See how it kind of breaks off? That is what will bring us our snowfall potential, kind of. I'll bring your chat back up here, so we're talking back and forth on that. So this is, what we're looking at here on our jet stream is a combination of things. Again, the winds there in the blues, and then these yellows are mid-level lift. That's what we're kind of watching with this, because typically that's where we get, active weather. We mentioned some rain chances on Wednesday. Notice how we generally have just a couple little blips of yellow there kind of going through the overall pattern. We don't have one of these big, strong dips here moving in. And so when we go into the weekend, typically if we were looking at a snow potential, I'd say, well, watch this big dip move toward us, right? And it kind of sort of does. But notice how it kind of you can almost see things being ripped off of this, right? And so what's being ripped off of that are those little waves. And those little waves are what are going to bring us our snow chances. And how often do you think those little waves are precisely right? The answer is precisely never. So when we look at this, again, I'm watching, you can see with my mouse there, just watch real closely as I go here between 6 p.m. Friday and 6 p.m. Saturday. And you'll see, it looks like things are being picked up and pulled off of that, right, into our area. So the combination of that system, plus this wave coming at us to the north and west, and another big dip up north, kind of reinforcing the cold air. But there's enough little bits of energy in what is a really slow-moving overall pattern that's where some of this snowfall potential comes in. And I'll be honest, man, Gabe, I'm going to bring you in here for a second. The thing about this is that this absolutely could happen. But this is the way in which shattered dreams look 5 days out, right? There's a really good chance that this is significant in the form of, some kind of ice and snow combination that has some people home for a few days. But this is not our typical setup. Hence the reason why it gives me the nerves, that's for sure. But yeah, you can see, and you've been looking at this the last few days as well. This jet stream pattern just kind of keeps little waves moving at us all the way until like Monday. I think kind of moisture is a little bit out of phase at that point, but we have some chances there for like a solid 36 hours that if everything kind of lines up wrong, here we go.
And wrong, the key word there, because it can either be one of snow, ice, or rain. And so all of which will either please or disappoint a lot of folks in North Mississippi. And disappoint really talking about that ice forecast. But
Oh, sorry. I thought I'd fixed it. I broke something. Hold on. We'll take it back, Gabe.
Well, it's all good. When it comes down to it, it always matters with consistency. And that's one of the things that we're looking at is first assessing each model at different times and different key times whenever it comes to our weekend forecast, and also looking at each run-to-run model output. And we talked about a little bit about it at 5, but we're going to do both here on the 6 o'clock hour. So first we're starting with, this is a look at Saturday. And actually let me drag this, of course, to where you can see the time. This is at midnight on your Friday night, Saturday morning. A key time frame whenever we're talking about potential winter weather happening is because that's usually the coldest times of night. So as we take a look at the Euro, of course, a little bit less on the moisture on the front end of the system. So as we're pushing more to our Friday night, we're not expecting a heavy output of rainfall if the Euro were to continue to verify. But then we jump over to GFS, and you can see that line of moisture already building into North Mississippi and potentially getting some of that winter weather output as well. And again, that's the same time frame, just different positioning whenever we're talking model run to model run. And a few others that we're looking at, I mean, our icon model having primarily rainfall towards the south. Now, this is not one of our most trustworthy models, but one of the outputs that it's having is that it's rainfall and bulk of it's to our south. And of course, the UK Met, again, not one that we usually rely on here on Mississippi Live Weather, but showing that winter weather potential a little bit more towards the north. So the positioning still fluctuating a little bit in regards to where that winter weather is going to happen. Well, let's jump ahead. And this is looking at your Saturday night and Sunday morning. And I know everyone's staring at this image saying, oh my word, that's what we're going to be getting? No. And as Matt was saying earlier on, do not take this as truth. We're basically taking this and watching the consistency as we go model run to model run. So this is that Euro output. And one of the things that stands out is look at the rain line. It's a very defined line compared to where our other models line up and where long track models usually line up. And the reason why, it all comes down to temperatures. And temperatures remain above freezing in that threshold heading Saturday night into Sunday morning based off of this model output right there. Let's jump that over to GFS.
I thought I fixed it. Y'all, I apologize. I'm trying to pull up Gabe's chat here, and you might not realize this. So, like, while we're in the middle of these broadcasts, I'm almost always building graphics. So I thought I'd fix this one. Let's bring up the actual chat with actual Gabe. I apologize. I'm done messing it up. Go, Gabe.
It's all good. Hey, technology is going to technology. But what I was saying was just the GFS lining up with a lot more snowfall. And what that means is it's going to be colder at the surface. So already seeing some differences in the forecasts that stand out. And one of those being temperatures. How do those trend as we get into that forecast? Well, what I'm going to take you guys to now is what our temperature graphic is showing us. And we're going to keep it primarily on the GFS, but I might jump it over to Euro here in just a second. And bear with me while I drag this down a little bit to give you guys a better view. So where we're watching this go through, this is Thursday evening, and we're going to take it into our Friday evening. And again, we can see that dip in the temperatures already taking place. This is Friday around 9 p.m. 27 degrees in Tupelo with 27 showing up around Oxford. As we keep that going through the night, you can see that deep chill just moves into North Mississippi, and we're seeing very cold temperatures there at the surface. That carries over throughout our weekend as well, and we remain below freezing. And GFS is a little bit aggressive on this one, forecasting potential single digits into early next week. So still some questions about the cold on top of the winter weather, but what it's showing us is that it is going to be a cold forecast. Let me move this over to the Euro real quick and give you guys a look at that and kind of compare this compared to what we just saw on GFS. And whenever we're looking at those surface temperatures, let me drag it out to Friday. We can see 42 degrees. This is again at Friday evening, or 36 degrees by 6 p.m. And as we get into those overnight hours, already seeing 27 and 25 degrees by 6 a.m. on our Saturday morning. So pretty deep output of that cold weather pushing into North Mississippi as well. As we get into that afternoon, remember that unique shape, that unique polygon that we saw on our winter weather output? You can see it clearly defined right there. And what's the difference? 31 Tupelo, 33 Starkville. That 2-degree difference is going to make all the difference whenever we're talking about snow, ice, or rain. And yes, that's going to disappoint some folks and make a lot of other folks very happy, but that's what we're teetering along, is that line of where winter weather could potentially happen. And pushing into early next week, you can see that the GFS, not the only one forecasting those cold temperatures. I mean, potential, the Euro, very aggressive and trying to get some negatives in there towards Tennessee, but yeah, it's forecasting a very cold forecast even after this winter weather threat. And one of the things that I'm still watching for, and it was funny, Matt pulled up the school day forecast, will it affect early parts of school? You know, we need to see what exactly happens, but it's going to be sitting below freezing for quite some time. And so heading about those weekend plans, definitely something to watch for. My wife, who's a teacher over at Boonville, has been asking me constantly, Gabe, is the weather day going to be used next week? Still a lot of questions, but definitely something we're watching for as we get into next week. All right, what we're going to look at now. What is this? I know I've shown you guys graphic after graphic after graphic. This is a look at our 850 millibar layer. And what that means is we're basically at, 900 to 1,000 millibars here at the surface. When we get a little bit higher in the sky, that's where those millibars get a little bit lower. So 850 is that layer in the sky where we could potentially see some of that melting if the temperatures were warm enough. And as we go about this forecast, you can see throughout this week, we're in a very cold pattern. But as we get into this weekend, we start to see temperatures and the green showing above freezing temperatures. And as we get into that forecast for our weekend, take a look at how those dip. So there we're getting a look at Friday around noon, and let me just go ahead and drag this out a little bit more. And this is still GFS, which was very aggressive on those cold temperatures. We were talking about below freezing all the way down towards meridian. Well, what are you getting right here? Those cold temperatures not really going south of 82. So what that's telling us is there is going to be some melting aloft that takes place, and that then changes the precipitation. Does not matter how cold it is here at the surface. If it melts aloft, we're talking about sleet or freezing rain at that point, and that's when the ice threat comes into play. And what I'm going to show you guys now, and actually let me carry this through the entire weekend, you can see how that line of blue, it tries to dip further south, but that's beyond that winter weather threat, moving into our Sunday when a lot of that moisture has cleared on out, allowing for that significantly colder air to move in. So as we take a look at some of those snowfall outputs, and this is one of the things we talked about earlier at 5 o'clock, is look at the differences. We're going to first start on the 17th at let me see what time frame this is at. So the 17th, this was the 0Z run. So we're now 2 days ahead of this. Look at the forecast. It wasn't even talking about snow 2 days ago. But as we get into that extended pattern, take a look at when it starts showing up. So already the 18th at 6Z, starting to get a little bit of that showing up. And as we take our forecast through 12Z, look at the significant change that we're already starting to see. And this is total snowfall output, seeing some of those numbers dip a little bit more south. And it's been pretty consistent since then. I mean, just watch how this is dragged out model run to model run, showing at least some of those blues popping up in North Mississippi. So that's when that snowfall threat comes into play, and it's like, okay, there's more consistency. One of the things we look at this far out. Well, it's not just with the snow, it's also with the ice. We're talking about that melting layer aloft. Definitely something to pay attention to because ice is going to be even more hazardous, I would say, than even some snowfall. So as we keep this going through the forecast, going to look at those same model runs, you can see that that winter weather potential was non-existent for the bulk of our 17th and 18th runs. But let's go ahead and take a look as we get into the latter half of the 18th and into the 19th. And what do you notice? Significant change already starting to happen with that darker stripe over the top of Mississippi and continue to remain. I know it's changing a little bit, but still remaining in the area as each model run comes out. Now, the magnitude of it, that is shifting, and the positioning of it, it's shifting. So that's why we don't take anything as truth, as gospel this far out, because it changes every single model run. So folks, if you're looking for consistent forecasts, and I see several that are saying, are we getting snow? Are we getting ice? Are we getting rain? Right now, can't tell. And anyone that can't or says they can tell this far out, they're just guessing at this point because the positioning of this forecast can and will change. And the outputs are also going to change as we get into that forecast. So Matt, that's one of the importances right now. And you talked about it at 5. Day 4, day 5, we're looking at consistencies. Is that pattern continuing to remain in place for any winter weather to happen? Okay, day 2, day 3, what's going to happen? And that's where we'll have more details all throughout this week.
And it's easy to look at those numbers behind you. You know, you don't have to be a rocket scientist to look behind you and go, those are some really big numbers.
For sure.
But small differences make gigantic differences when you start talking about these totals. The majority of what you're looking at there is probably going to fall as either rain or snow, not ice, or sleet, some version of that, as opposed to like true ice storm ice.
Yes.
It is never right this far out. So not even close. So yeah, ultimately, you know, we will be adjusting things as we get closer. So just, you know, stay tuned, and I just know that everything's going to be okay. I do have to check my button real quick here. I think I fixed it. Ready, set.
Well, look at that. What's up, chat?
Now you have a chat button right here. I got to get Maggie one made as well.
Oh, I'm pumped. Chat and I are going to have fun at 10 o'clock tonight.
Well, okay, so it is, you don't have a chat button. I have a chat button for you. I'll have to see if I can make you a chat button.
There's a will, there's a way.
Anyway, well, there's a will, there's a way. Join the conversation. Of course, our broadcast, next one will be at 10 o'clock. Gabe will be, and these projections are going to be all over the place, bobbing back and forth over the course of the next week. Someone says forecasting has become more difficult with technology. To a certain extent, it has, because there's more information to look at, so you have more to sort through. But that does mean that the correct answer is out there if we can get to it. Certainly Gabe will be close to that tonight at 10 here in the Room to Room Weather Center. Thank you so much for subscribing, liking, supporting, and downloading here on Mississippi Live Weather. We'll see you at 10 o'clock.
March 24th, 2023 was a normal Friday. You know, we knew the weather was not good, but we needed to take shelter, and we didn't have shelter. My husband and almost 2-year-old daughter, Ethan and Riley, they did lose their lives in the storm. We're still recovering from it. We'll always be recovering from it. Matt Lawpon cares about the community. He's not just there to collect a paycheck. I feel like Matt Lawpon has proven himself trustworthy.